All right. Okay, welcome to episode number 12 of the Raptor Queens Podcast. Today I get the pleasure to host with my fellow queens, Allison Ho from way out east and Essie Magic representing the West Coast. Unfortunately, Sarah, our queen, is still off, but she'll be returning and we'll have a healthy roster next week. The theme is Each for Equality. And so in recognizing equality in the arena of sports, we just wanted to give a shout out to the women in the NBA. And more specifically, we wanted to give out a shout out to our queens that are on the Raptors payroll roster. And specifically today, I think we want to recognize our Queen of the North, Brittany Donaldson, the youngest coach. So there are 11 assistant coaches that are females in the NBA, and Brittany happens to be the youngest at the age of 26. So keep doing what you're doing, Brittany. Your strength in numbers and your ability to see the game and to get our boys seen out there, we really appreciate you. So our week of ball, we had an incredible week. Starting off on a bit of a low note, we lost to the Denver Nuggets on Sunday, 133 to 118, which was an ouch. We beat the terrible Suns at 123 to 114, and then we went to face our old final rivals, the Golden State Warriors, with a healthy Steph Curry back, and with Freddie VanVleet still out, we managed to pull a victory with 121 to 113. Also, Gasol was out in that game as well, and our Norman Powell scoring a career high of 37 points. Okay, so now for our hot takes on this week. I'm going to start off with Allison here, talking about the Denver game. So, Allison, what were your thoughts?
So I hate to say this. This was an entirely predictable loss. I mean, we actually played well and fought back in the second and third quarters, and the game was sort of within reach until about 7 minutes left to go in the fourth. And I really think this was asking too much for the Raptors to win this game, given the players that we were missing. It really shows you Nikola Jokic's talents that was on full display. He's probably the premier center in the league. I made a note here. He's basically a de facto point guard without the speed. Definitely a future Hall of Famer, and he should be in the MVP conversation. Their ball movement was beautiful, especially in the first quarter. And Jokic pulling down a rebound with one hand and throwing a full court pass. So, again, I feel that loss was predictable.
Okay, Allison, how about you, Essie? What were your thoughts on our one loss of the week, which was kind of a big blow for us and to start off the week?
Yeah, so I guess I agree with Allison for sure that the writing was kind of on the wall in this game. I mean, even to start, Denver scored 40 points in the first quarter. Jamal Murray alone had 17 points in the first quarter, and we were just playing terrible perimeter defense. So I was a little bit worried, but then I hadn't given up yet. But then, we all saw how Pascal was playing. He was just way off. He was 2 for 11 in the first half, and then overall he shot 28% from the field for the full game. So definitely we were struggling. And then Nikola Jokic was playing so good. He had a ton of key offensive rebounds as well. He was kind of not him. Plumlee actually was bullying Boucher a bit, and that was a sign in itself. So yeah, this game was very tough, and even Denver was being very physical with Kyle Lowry, and I wonder if it was because of the fact that Pascal was struggling a bit that they could kind of get away with that because he wasn't really being a threat. I think he was 0 for 7 from three. He shot pretty poorly in the Golden State game too, so I think I'm confusing the two. But really, the only big positive from this game was OG Anunoby for me, who had 32 points. He was 12 for 16 from the field, perfect on free throws, and he usually struggles with free throws. He was 5 for 5 there, 7 rebounds, and a whopping 7 steals. So he was literally my only bright spot in this game, really. Actually, Norm was good too. But Yeah, it's a shame that it wasn't a loss because we didn't play that well. And sometimes it's just like, how do you stop a team that they shot 56% from the field, Denver, and they had 38 assists to our 24. So that just shows the ball movement that Allison was referring to. They were just playing better than us. And even from three, they shot 50%, we shot 26. So it's like, it's hard to win in those scenarios. We're fortunate we had a chance there. Even the bench, they outscored our bench. It was 46-20. So it's like games like that. You're not going to win. I mean, you can possibly steal one if you're a really good team coming back, but it's hard to win when the other team is scoring like that and playing like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think also the sort of lack or the loss of Freddie Van Vliet in the interim, I think we really felt that as well too, because he wasn't in that game. And just like you guys had pointed out in the last episode, I mean, that high altitude in Denver, it really gets to us as well too. So I'm going to blame it on the high altitude that we lost this game.
That's a good excuse.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, that was our loss. I mean, we've sort of gone through that, but then we had 2 wins over the Suns and over the Warriors, and I'm excited to hear your take. So I think maybe Essie, I'll sort of start with you on what you thought about our performance against Phoenix.
This was an interesting game, especially because Nick Nurse decided to start McCaw over Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. So I thought that was a little bit odd at first, but I was like, okay, I'll trust Nick Nurse on this one. But overall, it was a very interesting game. The Raptors, which it kind of reminded me of like when those games we played on that winning streak, where a lot of them we were like sluggish to start, and then we turned up the defense and then came back. So it kind of reminded me of that. And then also, too, it was great to see Chris Boucher step up, especially after Nick Nurse had criticized the bench. The fact that he came in, he also started the third quarter, too. So he played a lot more minutes than what he's used to, I believe 29 minutes. He had 19 points, 15 rebounds, so a double-double, and he was efficient in shooting. So I was really happy to see how Boucher played, and there was especially a really good play in the third. Around 6:45 mark, where Boucher had a block and it led to a fast break, and then Pascal got the alley-oop. So that was really fun. It's kind of funny because like I feel bad for Boucher because it's like he still doesn't get any respect from the refs, and I think it's because the refs attribute when there's contact, they just attribute it to his small size, and they don't think he was genuinely fouled. So I kind of feel bad for him because he had a lot of those moments where it's like, he's just, he like screams or whatever to show he was fouled, and he fumbles to the floor, and it's just kind of awkward. But overall, it was a really good game. Raptors turned out the defense in the third. They limited Phoenix to only 18 points. And you know what was a really good bright spot as well? OG Anunoby. He's getting better down low. He's not fumbling as much. He's more agile. I trust him more. And I noticed it too in the Golden State game. And then also too, I definitely have to point out Leo Routen's his booger comments. It's so funny because Matt Devlin has the same like immature sense of humor as me, and you could tell that Matt Devlin just wanted to like burst into laughter, and he still laughed for so long over that.
Boys will be boys.
But yeah, I thought that was funny. And then Siakam played great. He played essentially how I want him to play as our go-to player. He wasn't forcing anything, but he did exactly what we wanted him to do. And there was tons of hustle from all players, diving for loose ball. I actually do appreciate McCaw's aggressiveness in this game. He was driving to the basket more, trying to create more instead of his typical he still has his moments of avoidance, you can tell, but it was better than usual. And then also, too, it's kind of funny to see when a team does to us what we tend to do to them. Because, like, Phoenix was really good at getting back in transition really fast. And so we were the ones who were rather not getting back. So it was funny to see them do that to us, because we always do that to teams where we catch them off guard and we just score quickly. And other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Again, OG Anunoby, I've just been really impressed with him overall. I really like how he's never rattled by those late shot clock threes he gets. I just find that so amazing. So, yeah.
Okay, great takes, Essie. And what about you, Allison? Any thoughts on, what are your sort of thoughts on the game? Any thoughts? Do you have any thoughts?
Oh, most definitely. So that was a pretty determined and professional win. Like, I know it, even though Phoenix isn't really that good, it's still difficult to win on the road. I mean, nonetheless, they put up 68 points on us in the first half. So the defense really tightened up in the second half, and I think we only allowed 46 points in that second half. So the defense was good. We did out-rebound the Suns significantly, 47-35. And just the only way to describe Chris Boucher is that he exploded, and his energy really translated to loose balls into putbacks, and he really gave the team a spark. And it just makes you appreciate the Raptors' depth, because this has got to be a difficult team to plan for, because who's going to step up big? Like, it seems like there's almost someone every night. And I commented before about DeAndre Ayton, and just with his obvious limitations. I mean, he's a second-year player. He's had some injuries. But I didn't realize, I went back and looked, and he was the first overall, the first number one draft choice in 2018, first overall. I didn't realize that. So he went ahead of Luka and Trae Young and Shai Gilgeous and Colin Sexton. So I didn't realize that. So it was a good game, the Phoenix game.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't know that about Ayton either. Just, you guys have both summarized the game so well. It was just one of those fun games to watch. And like you said, Essie, I mean, although we didn't see Pat McCaw, sort of translate into any points on the board, but his defense was good and he did have a solid game. I was also questioning the decision to have him in that starting position, but we have to trust Nick, as we have learned. I mean, obviously, I love Chris Boucher and love all the flailing, and 19 of the 20 bench points were from Chris. And move to the next game, which was a very sort of special game. We were back in the place where we got the championship. I mean, now they have this new fancy dancy arena. Steph Curry and his Golden State Warriors, a very different team from 2019. What did you guys think about this? And maybe now I'll start with Allison on this one.
It was good to see Steph back, but I had this secret fear all week when we found out that he was going to be back, that he's going to go off for like 60 or 81 or something like that. Thankfully he didn't, but it was really good to see him back. He's an electrifying player. Norm, amazing, great game, and also really good to have Serge back. He's just a big stabilizing influence, and he kind of picked up where he left off. So that was a good win too.
Absolutely. And Nessie.
Yeah, so the Golden State game had a lot of fun moments, and I like the energy of this game, even though the fans were booing us way more than I thought they would. But I still appreciated the high energy of the fans. I think because I wasn't worried about us losing, it's like, okay, cool if you're booing, you know what I mean? As opposed to Allison, I actually was not worried much about Steph Curry coming back. I just felt like his conditioning would be off, and like he was going to be on minutes restriction. So I wasn't really I wasn't worried about that at all, really. But yeah, obviously the fans were excited to see him come back, and so that definitely contributed to the excitement there. And what's funny too about what you mentioned, Sonali, about this being a monumental game to come, or historic game to come back to, is that I don't know if you guys saw the TNT broadcast, how after the game when the interviewer was talking to Kyle Lowry, how he just kept, it's like she kept trying to get him to acknowledge that it was something special about this game, and he kept saying over and over again, yeah, it's just a regular season game, so it's another regular season game. And I just thought it was so funny. He was just it was very Kawhi like dismissing the game like that. But also too, so about the other parts of the game, yeah, Siakam was struggling. Oh my gosh, he had a lot of short shots too. I noticed, like they were just short, and I don't know. And usually that happens when players are tired, but it was near the beginning of the game, unless it was like just from the traveling and things like that. But man, he was rough. He was 5 for 17 from the field, 0 for 7 from 3. So that was kind of disappointing. He did have some clutch plays towards the end, though, so that did help. Boucher struggled a bit in the paint. He was getting bodied at some points by Pascal, and this is Golden State's Pascal, not our Pascal. But overall, had some really fun moments. I had a lot of like, woo, you know, when I tend to scream when the Raptors have a good play. I always scream out loud, even though I'm alone in my apartment. But yeah, like for example, when Terence Davis blocked, he got blocked, which was bad, and then Golden State tries to go on a run, and the fans are getting into it, and then Norman Powell just pickpockets Steph Curry and goes back the other way. That was so funny. And then Terence Davis had a lot of good plays as well. There was the one where Steph Curry attempted a 3 and missed, because I think he was 0 for 4 to start all his threes, and then Golden State gets the putback, and then Terence Davis out of nowhere just comes speeding down like the road runner and does a dunk. The reaction of Reggie Miller, he was just like, oh, you just can't do that, leaving him wide open. It was so funny. And then also too, of course, the infamous dunk, the one where Steph Curry made his first 3, again after being 0 for 4, his first 3 back, and then Terence Davis II comes back and does this monster slam, and oh my gosh, I screamed so, I had to rewind it like 10 times. And what was most funny about it is then after he screams, "Mama!" Did you guys see that? So I don't know if he was giving a shout out to his mom or something, but it was the most peculiar thing to shout. And I just thought it added to the excitement, because it was like the fans didn't even have a chance to get excited about Steph Curry's first 3. Like they had like literally a few seconds, and Terence Davis just spoiled it. Like he should have been called the spoiler this game, because he spoiled a lot of their excitement. So that was fun. From now on, I'm just going to refer to that dunk as the mama dunk, because it was like so good. And I think that's pretty much it. Overall, it was a good game until the end. Got a little bit too close for me in terms of, you know, I was like, okay, maybe they could possibly lose, although I was super confident at the beginning. And I was a bit disappointed in Pascal Siakam overall. Like, he really shouldn't struggle against a team like Golden State. Let's be real. He should not be struggling against them. And so that really threw me off about him a little bit. So that would be my only main disappointment. But other than that, it was a game of great moments.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that was really well put. I yeah, similar thoughts. I guess the just going back to Allison, like it is really fun to watch Steph Curry, and you can't ignore that he like just speeds around the first line defenders. And I mean, yeah, it was really exciting to see him back in the game, but overall, like there were those moments of panic. Are we going to lose to Golden State tonight? And maybe that's sort of a bit a karmic revenge for Steph Curry. Maybe he deserves a win, but no, we managed to clinch that playoff seed. And what a game for Norman. I mean, you know, my predictions may not be right on this podcast, but one thing I did sort of say in the beginning, which Allison reminded me of, was that I've always been on Team Norm. And so I think this is the Norm that we are going to see, and this is who he truly is. And it's just going to get better. And he's got his confidence, and I think that confidence is really contagious. I mean, we've talked about how, you know, other players like Terence Davis II, he sort of has this mentorship role in his life. Norman Powell does for Terence Davis II. And so it's just really nice to see these guys out there and to see the confidence and to also see like the kind of leadership that Norman brings in as well too. He may be silent, but he's very strong and he understands the grind.
Norman Powell, I didn't mention him, I realized. 100%. He like not blew me away, because I do have faith in him now. But he was so super impressive. And I just love how, the commentators were so obsessed. Like, they were like drooling over Norman Powell. I was like, yay, good for you, Norm. So I was very happy about that. One thing I do want to add too about Steph Curry in terms of how he plays and seeing the difference is, I think also, like, if I'm looking at it from the Golden State side, it was very evident that it was a good decision for him to come back and play. I know some people were saying, oh, you should just sit him the whole season, which I disagreed with in the first place for various reasons. But you could see that some of the players were struggling a little bit to adapt to his style of play. It's like they were kind of fumbling when they would catch the ball, or they were unsure, oh wait, he moved the ball fast, should I keep swinging the ball to get more momentum, or keep the momentum, or should I shoot it? Like, you could see that kind of hesitance, and they're a step slow to get to his passes at times. So I think they definitely need to play together, and I think it was a good decision for him to be back, for sure.
So thank you, ladies, for those wonderful takes of the week. And now let's talk about our kings and jesters of the North, the players that impressed us and those that maybe didn't step up to the plate, or, were there for entertainment value. So we'll start with Allison. So Allison, who's your pick for the King of the North this week?
So I had a lot of trouble making a decision, but I went with OG. That game against Denver, that was fabulous. I mean, 37 points. It was a career game for him. It was 37 points, 7 rebounds, 7 steals. And I think that came on the back of a game where he had six steals previously. So it was kind of sort of a tantalizing look into the OG that maybe Masai Ujiri sees 3 or 4 years out from now. So someone that's long and just, can run into the passing lanes, and just, what a great game. Not such big stat lines against Phoenix or Golden State, but still, he put up big minutes this week. 40 minutes against Denver, 37 Phoenix, 38 Golden State. And I remember the journalists were asking Nick Nurse about, kind of OG and where he was standing. And Nick Nurse made a comment about putting OG in a position to succeed. And it looks like maybe he's starting to do that. So my King of the North this week, OG Anunoby.
Hey, now what about you, Essie?
All right. So it's really interesting how Allison and I have been on different wavelengths this week and last week. So this week I ended up choosing Norman Powell as my King of the North. He's just been so consistent, and he's been doing exactly what we need him to do, and which is score. And he's been very consistent from a scoring perspective. Had a career high 37 points against Golden State, 61% from the field, perfect from the free throw line. And the Phoenix game, he had 26 points, Denver, 24 points. So just extremely, extremely consistent. And honestly, because he was playing so well offensively against Golden State, that really bailed out Pascal Siakam, who was playing bad up until those clutch plays at the end. So he's doing exactly what we need him to do. And I just value that so much at this point, because we're not that strong of an offensive team in general. So seeing him, be a scorer for us, a consistent scorer for us, is very, very valuable. And he's been playing so well. And one thing I want to say too is, like, it took me a while to get on the Norman bandwagon, because I was always afraid that, he's done this before and then he's just going to revert back to it and back to his old ways in another game. But I'm actually seeing a really a real change in him, and where I can comfortably say that I trust Norman Powell now. And the biggest difference I'm seeing is that he's just playing smarter. And I think the biggest differences that I'm seeing in Norm right now, which is why I can confidently say that this change is for real, is because he's just playing so much smarter now. He knows when to pass, he knows when to shoot, he knows when to drive. And that is a major change, because before, we used to criticize his basketball IQ because we were like, oh, he's making stupid decisions. He would drive in the middle of nowhere and turn over the ball. But this is a real change where we can see that, he's improved his basketball IQ for sure. And so I think we can trust him moving forward, that he's going to be a real contributor for us. And I'm really, really impressed with him overall, and also just this week, because it's the King of the North for this week.
Wonderful. What a beautiful ode to Norman Powell. So because I'm always on a completely different wavelength than everybody on this podcast. So my King in the North this week, I actually chose Masai Ujiri. Going with the theme of International Women's Day. I just want to point out that when he was hired in 2013, there was only one female staff member at that time, Doreen Doyle, who is now the former manager of the team services. Now we have 14 women on the payroll for the Raptors. And Teresa Arendt, who is VP of our basketball operations. We have Brittany Donaldson, who is our assistant coach. And one of the things that Masai has been very clear about is that these women were just not hired because they're women. They were hired because they're the best at what they do. So it's really incredible to see such a visionary bring women into the forefront of the NBA, and especially with our wonderful franchise that we love so much. And he's also a shout out for the he just recently hired Sarah Chan, who is the first African lead scout, and just keep doing what you're doing. It's fantastic. So that's sort of my take on the King of the North. But if I was to pick a player, I would have picked Norman Powell too, Essie.
Yeah, that was a surprise. I wasn't expecting you to say that, but kudos to International Women's Month. There's one point I want to add too, that I almost picked OG as well. So I do want
be like Allison.
Yeah, I do want to give some kudos because he did play well this week. Those 7 steals he had against Denver, I think that was a franchise high, I believe.
I think you're right. Yeah,
you are right.
Yeah, so he's played really well as well. I mean, I still think that, I remember I made a comment about his ceiling some time ago. I still don't quite see him, like, I'm not fully on the OG train, if that makes sense. But I was definitely very impressed with him this week, and he was consistent. And I know I mentioned before that he's been playing better down low as well. So it was a hard choice. There was a lot of good choices this week for King of the North.
Absolutely. And so with those choices comes sort of the bad choices that we have to make, which is our choosing of the Jester of the North. So who is that player that didn't quite make the cut to become the King of the North, or, sort of disappointed you? So I'm going to start with Allison. Allison, who's your Jester of the week?
Oh boy. Okay, Pat McCaw against Phoenix. 34 minutes, 5 points. He did have 3 rebounds, and he had a steal. And against Golden State, he had played for 24 minutes and 1 field goal attempt. And there was something kind of telling in the Phoenix game. So I made a note. There was 1:36 left, and Pat McCaw was bringing the ball up the court, kind of at center court. And you could see Kyle Lowry like gesturing him to hurry up. And then Kyle must have seen something in the defense or something. Maybe someone was tying their shoe. I don't know. He saw something in the defensive setup, and McCaw just kind of ran all the way in and had an uncontested layup. So it was like, there's Kyle, the basketball savant. Like, let's go, dude. Let's go. So, I mean, Pat McCaw didn't see that play. He didn't see the play developing. He just, I don't know, wasn't noticing what was going on. So, court jester, Pat McCaw.
Yeah. Oh, Pat McCaw. So Essie, who is your gesture of the week?
So I almost did choose Pat McCaw as well because I just thought it was blatantly obvious. But I decided to just, for variety's sake, go with somebody else. But I do agree with literally everything Allison said. Like, he was the worst start or least impactful starter in that Denver game for that one game he started. And it was just downhill from there for me. But anyway, I won't talk about him since he's not my core gesture. So I decided to go with Rondé Hollis Jefferson. And it's more of an overall disappointment. And I don't know if it's not his fault because he also only played 8 minutes per game the last two games. He played 25 minutes in the Denver game, and I thought he was okay. I didn't think he was terrible or anything like that. And then Nick Nurse opted to start McCaw, and then from that point on, he's just been Rondé has just been non-impactful since then. And I don't know if he's done something in practice that is I even questioned in the Golden State game, because he didn't play for the whole first half, came in the second half. I even questioned if he was injured or sore or one of those things. Because, like, why isn't Rondé Hollis Jefferson playing? So I don't know what he's doing in practice, but it's more so much I chose him in more of an empowering way. It's like I want him to be a part of the rotation. So I don't know what Nick Nurse was thinking in terms of the minutes, or if there's something going on in practice where he's not impressing them, but I want him to step up his game so that he can be getting more playing time as opposed to seeing McCaw get so many minutes. So it's a weird gesture of the week in that sense, because I don't know the true reason why. I definitely think it's attributed to the minutes, but either way, I want to see him be more impactful for the team, especially going into the playoffs. So whatever it is, I want him to, get his stuff together so he can be an impactful player moving forward.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, initially I was going to pick Pat as well too, but then I sort of went on the logic of, bad games happen to really good guys and all-star players, and so I picked Pascal for this week, solely based on his performances, his horrible performance with Denver Nuggets, where he was a -13, and with Golden State Warrior, where he's -2. Something about his rhythm was off this week, and he is an all-star, and I want him to do the best, and not just better, but to be the best. He needs to finish, and those finishes need to be, their all-star quality. We need the guy, and so I'm hoping that this week was just sort of one of those off rhythm weeks for him, and that we'll have him back in the next run and then off to the championships. So that was my gesture of the week, and I can see that Essie, you might have something to say.
I mean, I see what you're saying. I just didn't expect that answer because he did have the one good game against Phoenix. But I do agree with you that, like, against Golden State, come on, you should not be playing that poorly against Golden State. You know what I mean? Like, they're terrible. Do you guys want me to tell you a funny story actually about Golden State?
Of course.
It's like literally at the beginning of the season when people didn't expect them to be bad, and then suddenly they started playing and then they were bad, and there was all these like news stories about it. So this was prior to Steph Curry injuring his hand, so let's keep that out of it. But I literally would watch the Golden State games just to laugh at them, just to laugh at how bad they were at the beginning of the season, those first 2 to 3 games, because they were so bad. Like it was laughable. It was air balls. People were just blowing by them on defense. There were so many defensive breakdowns, and like the players' reactions to it, like Draymond getting mad and Steph getting mad. It was just really funny. And so I just see Golden State in a really poor category. And so for me, the fact that Pascal did not play well against them, like, although he did bounce back from the Denver game in the Phoenix game, it's like this was another easy opportunity to bounce back. And there's just no excuse. How can you play that bad against Golden State? They're the worst team in the league. So I agree with you on, I see it now. I didn't choose him because of that one game where he played well, but I can see why you chose him. If he's going to be our all-star, our go-to player, he can't play badly against the worst team in the league. Come on.
Thank you. Thank you for that validation.
Think we'll have to discuss this another time also. Anyway.
Oh.
In the interest of time, but in all honesty, like, anyway, we'll talk about it another time.
That tells me that Allison has a lot to say.
Okay. So that was fun. And so now we're on to the tea time. That's right. It's a bit of a switch up for me this week, but because I've been so focused on avoiding the coronavirus, there hasn't been a lot that's been happening with the Toronto Raptors this week in terms of gossip or tea. So I'm just going to do a few shout outs. I'm going to wish Malcolm Miller a happy 27th birthday. He turned 27 yesterday, and a happy birthday to Toronto, coincidentally, as well, too. Share the same birthday as Malcolm Miller. Toronto has turned 184, which is kind of crazy. But I think one of the stories that has come out, and Essie and I were sort of talking about this, was Bradley Beal's sort of comments on Toronto. And so maybe I'll let Essie kind of delve into that story, and we can share our thoughts on that.
Sure. Yeah. So he did do a full interview, I believe, with Mark J. Spears. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to cut to the part that's most juicy for us, which was essentially he was justifying why he still chose to stay in DC. And in the process, he said, I could go to Boston, I can go to Toronto, I can go to Miami, but what would that look like? It wouldn't necessarily be my team, to where now I'm in a situation in Washington where I'm being built around. So why that was very interesting, one, was because it shows he's considered Toronto, which is probably the most exciting part about that. It's like, oh, he's giving it a thought, because we've all been wanting him. Well, a lot of people have been wanting him to come to Toronto. But two, also how he doesn't see that he could still be the core of the team. So I thought that was really interesting, because I feel like if he did come to Toronto, he would actually surpass Siakam in terms of being that, go-to closer, especially in the fourth quarter. Of course, we're giving the ball to Bradley Beal. You know what I mean? If we need a quick bucket. So I still feel like he would be an integral part of the team and a core member, and he would be the go-to guy. And I think Pascal would be second, to be honest. So it's interesting how he views it that way, that, maybe he thinks he wouldn't get enough credit for if we win or something like that, like with any winning team, because he named all the winning teams, right? But that was interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Allison, do you have any thoughts on this?
So, I mean, clearly Bradley Beal has a huge heart. I remember in 2018 when John Wall went down with one of his many injuries, this guy put the team on his back, and he basically willed them to a playoff position. So his courage and his determination are not to be questioned. But just, that whole take on what he said, it's kind of like DeRozan-esque, people don't stay with one team anymore. And I think he'd made a comment about he wanted to be like D Wade or Dirk or Udonis Haslem. Well, it's a different NBA now. And basically he signed himself up with Washington, and they're not a very good team. And it's just like Carmelo Anthony. It is what it is. So Bradley Beal stuck. He did say that he wanted to stay, I think the quote was, in one situation for a long time, like D Wade or Dirk or Udonis Haslem. But I mean, this is kind of also like Carmelo, like he signed himself up with a poor team for years to come. He's just signed a max. So it kind of makes me wonder. And then, Damian Lillard had made a comment about there are things more important than winning when he re-upped with Portland. So yeah, it's hard to know what to think about what Bradley Beal's thinking, because he's going to be in Washington for a while, and they're not a good team.
I think he's going to regret it. I think it's going to be one of these things down the line where when he's no longer in his prime and he doesn't have as much flexibility to choose where he wants to go, he's going to regret this decision. He's going to end up being like Carmelo, You know what I mean? Like somebody who chose the money over choosing a place to win. And I believe that was one of Carmelo's concerns originally in choosing his free agency teams, was like he wanted a team that was built around him as well. And so I think for sure he's going to regret it. And I don't know. I think the team can still be like, maybe it's not built around him because he feels like he's come after the team's been built, but I still think the team would adapt to him being a big part of the core. So I still think it would be around him anyway.
I guess the thing that I like, just what to sort of touching on what both of you are saying, that, you know, at the end of the day, this is their job. And, you know, I guess maybe sometimes people make those business decisions, and winning a title or being on a really great team like the Raptors isn't really at the forefront. It's, you know, maybe money is something that talks in that situation. So I don't know.
I agree. I think he keeps trying to hide the fact. He keeps being like loyalty, all this stuff. I think he's trying to, you know, gloss over
justify his decision.
I think definitely securing the money was a big part of him signing that extension, because he's seen what happens to players who don't do the extension and they get injured or something. So I think that's
DeMarcus Cousins. Yep.
Yeah, Boogie.
I was just thinking about Cousins.
Isaiah Thomas, right? But I don't think he ever had an opportunity to sign a max.
Yeah, I don't recall if Isaiah Thomas had an opportunity to sign a max, but yeah, definitely his injury ruined his career.
Anyhow, so moving around to around the league segment, exciting things that have been happening in the league, and sort of just touching on, you know, there's some cool things happening in the West, and let's start with talking about the 8th seed. So what are your sort of predictions, ladies? And I'll start with Essie.
Sure. So in terms of the battle for the 8th seed in the West, so let's see. Right now, Memphis is holding on to it. They're at 31 and 32, and then after that, you have Portland and Sacramento, who are both 3.5 games behind, tied, and then New Orleans and San Antonio are 4 games behind Memphis. So about 5 teams in the mix, with Memphis holding it now, and then the other 4 are vying for it. So I think that Sacramento has the most momentum right now. So if I went by a momentum type of thing, and also in terms of scheduling, Sacramento, up until they just lost to the 76ers, they were 7-3 in their last 10 games, and now they're 6-4. Whereas the other teams just they're still playing a bit average, if I'm being honest with you. So Sacramento is the one team where I'm seeing that change, and their schedule is only I believe 17th or 18th hardest in the league, the remaining schedule. So I think Sacramento has the best chance to take it. New Orleans actually has the easiest schedule, but they had that silly loss to Minnesota. And I was like, how can you be serious about getting the 8th seed, and then you lose an important game like to Minnesota? So I don't trust the Pelicans to get it done. Portland, they actually have a quite easy schedule coming up. They have the next easiest in terms of these teams after the Pelicans, and Dame Lillard is back. So we could see them have a surge, but I think it'd be between Sacramento and Portland at this point. And unfortunately, Memphis has one of the hardest schedules remaining, I believe the second hardest in the whole league. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sacramento took it or Portland did.
Okay, so, Allison.
I kind of Memphis, because of Jonas, former Raptor being there, kind of like a little sentimental favorite. But I do agree with Essie. Sacramento, I watched one of their games against the Clippers, and I kind of looked back. I couldn't remember which game it was. And actually, they've beaten the Clippers twice since they beat them on January 30th and then again on February 22nd. They've also had wins along the way against Miami. And they have both tiebreaker. They have all 4 games over Memphis this year. So they definitely have the tiebreaker there. So it's going to be super interesting. And Sacramento, the game I saw against the Clippers, they had some composure. And I know it's a regular season game, but I was pretty impressed with them. So they've got De'Aaron Fox, and I did look at, they have power forward, Harry Giles, who's very similar to Chris Boucher. He's 6'11", and he's like long and lean. And I don't know. I think they can do a little bit of damage. It's going to be interesting to see what they can do. So I think it's going to be them in Memphis, and it's a hard call.
Okay. All right. For me, I agree with everything you ladies have said. I mean, in my notes too, I've put, Sacramento sort of has this momentum. I mean, I want Ja Morant and Memphis to make it, but it's going to be a hard one for them. The Spurs, they have a healthy team, but they've got a brutal schedule ahead. And New Orleans, yeah, great to have Zion Williamson, but I really don't think they're going to make it. So I agree. I think the Kings are going to make it. Okay, so moving along to our predictions for next week. So we've got a bit of a strange schedule. We're playing against the Sacramento Kings, and then we have Utah, and then we've got a bit of a break, and then we'll be meeting the Detroit Pistons again. So what are our predictions? We didn't get Sarah's predictions, but if anybody wants to take a jab at what her predictions are going to be, I'm happy to have that from either one of you. And we'll start off with Essie. What are your predictions for the next 3 games coming up here?
So the only game that I am worried about is the Utah game, because they're a top team in the West. Sacramento. Even though we just talked about their momentum, I still think it's not enough to stop the Raptors. Also, because rumor is that Van Vliet is coming back. One of Van Vliet or Gasol is likely going to come back the next game. I heard potentially both, but realistically, I think like only one. But that will help booster the Raptors. So I don't know. The Utah game is the only one where I'm kind of like, I'm unsure about. You know what? Let me just go out on a limb. I'm going to be like what you, Sonali, and Sarah do. And just be very optimistic and say that Pascal is going to make it his mission to bounce back and help will this team to victory. So I will say a 3-0 week.
Woohoo! As Sarah would say. I'm going to channel her energy.
And also, too, keep in mind, like, Boston is right on our tails, and I'm sure the players know that. So I'm just going to trust them to be playing really hard and get it done.
Fair. And what about you, Allison?
Okay, on that note, thank you, Utah, last night for beating Boston. These are hard predictions. So do I get to make a qualified prediction? If Mark or Fred come back, then we beat Sacramento. If they don't, then I think we're going to lose that game. So I'm going to say we're going to lose to Sacramento, lose to Utah, beat Detroit. So I'm going to say 1-2, and I hope I'm wrong.
Wow.
No faith.
I'm a pessimist. What can I say?
No hope from Allison Hope.
Hope. Okay, Sonali, what are you saying?
Okay, so this one's, I'm pretty optimistic, but I think I'm going to say we're going to win against the Kings. I think Utah's going to be a tough match, so I'm going to say we're going to lose against Utah, and we're going to beat the Pistons, obviously. I agree with Essie. I think the Jazz they're great contenders, and I'm really kind of afraid of them, but I think it's going to be a 2-1 loss for us. And I think Sarah would have said the same.
Oh my gosh, this is a record. I don't think there's ever been a week where I had the most optimistic prediction.
No, Essie, I hope you're right. I really hope you're right.
I feel like changing mine now, because now I'm worried about, I just remembered to have... Hear me out. Remember how we beat Utah so badly?
I know they're gonna be mad. They're gonna, yeah, that's part of it. That was the other reason.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, we shamed them.
So okay, I'll be a woman of my word.
Of
And
your
I'll stick
word.
with my with my 3-0. Okay.
It's okay. As I said before, bad games happen to good people. So bad predictions happen to good podcasters too, Essie.
Oh gosh. Hey, I might be right though. What if I'm right? We'll see.
Yeah, I hope you are right for this one. So I think we're going to wrap up now. We want to thank all of our listeners out there. Thank you for following us. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our podcast on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is at Raptor Queens. Same as our Instagram, and follow us on YouTube. We also love hearing your comments, and so you can always email us at raptorqueenspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and thank you to my queens, and I wish everyone a happy International Women's Day. Woohoo!
Mama!
We the North, baby.